Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here. Today I am here with Harley-Davidson's Lowrider S, and as you will probably see very prominently positioned there is the Milwaukee-Eight 117 engine. So this is, essentially speaking, the most powerful engine you will get in a production Harley-Davidson. It has been moved up from the CVO only offerings, and in 2022 you're getting that option, or you're getting these bikes with that as the standard fitment engine straight off the showroom floor. So if you're a performance orientated rider who really loves their Harleys, this is going to be a great thing to see, in that you're not going to have to do that upgrading yourself. And these offer 103 horsepower, 125 foot-pounds of torque, which is a pretty staggering amount of torque. And of course, as you're seeing here, we've got non-adjustable suspension, but some nice big forks. You're getting a almost 19-litre fuel tank, very comfortable single seat on it. Dual exhaust system, which has got a nice rumble, but obviously being a stock system is not extreme by any measure. You are also getting the Radiate cast aluminium wheels on this, which are an eye-catching wheel, in particular with this metallic bronze kind of color to them. They're a really elegant wheel design, 19 front, 16 rear, and dual disc brakes on the front, single quite large disc on the rear as well, belt final drive. Overall, really cool package. Foot controls as well, as you can see here. You've got kind of like, I guess almost like a mid control instead of a forward control. And these do come in at just over $30,000 here in Australia. So it is a premium over something like the Sportster S, if you're looking at a performance Harley and considering the old versus the new. And to me, that's quite an interesting comparison as a younger rider, I guess I would say. Now, when it comes to the Harley 117 power plant, this thing is an absolute gem. And I will say it is easy to see why Harley have done so well over such a long period of time with this more traditional style engine. The throttle open, pretty good. You can actually kind of roll along in first gear at very low speed with a gentle throttle open, and it'll pull along nicely. Once you crack that throttle a little bit further though, there is a massive punch of torque. And what makes this bike so special, obviously it's a V-twin, is just simply there is enormous amounts of torque. And what I really do like is the accessibility of that torque. Now, certainly it can kind of surprise you if you crack that throttle a little bit too aggressively and you're not expecting it, and you might get thrown back because there is just so much torque there on offer. But it being a relatively short rev range, you know, it revs up to say 6,000 RPM or something according to the dash. The power and the torque is very, very accessible, which means that you're going to be having a lot of fun on this machine in most conditions. Obviously, if you're in start and stop traffic, maybe not so much, but generally speaking, anywhere where you can open that throttle a little bit, you are taking advantage of that performance, and the torque is absolutely staggering. Whether you're talking, you know, straight line, just in the suburbs and around the city, having a little bit of fun opening that throttle hard, or taking it through the twisties, and obviously you're probably not carrying an enormous amount of cornering speed, but all the fun is in just smashing open that throttle once you leave the corner. But obviously all that fun is really maybe onto the brakes, or knocking it down into a gear, or using the engine braking into the corner, and then just smashing it open out of the corners and really taking advantage of the enormous, really staggering amount of torque there. And that is where you're going to have the most fun. It also sounds pretty darn good, I would say. It doesn't have an aftermarket system or anything on it, so that is a restricting factor, but I think the bike itself sounds really nice as well. So let's have a quick talk about the fork and the suspension setup really on the Lowrider S. I really do have to say I rate it. It's a non-adjustable system, which on the one hand you could think is maybe a little bit basic. However, 43mm fork, so it's got these beefy forks on it, and the overall ride between the front and the rear of the bike is really good. I would say it has been aimed at a greater level of comfort, which for me really, really worked, because certainly I would be happy spending longer days on this particular bike. And against something like the Sportster S, it actually had the advantage there despite not having adjustable suspension. So the standard package there, I am 70 kilos, so that does somewhat come into play, combined with quite a soft seat and quite a comfortable seat, really combined for a great overall suspension setup. The one thing I will say to that is if you're going over road surfaces which are quite broken up, where there's really frequent sharp suspension, you do get a little bit of skittering kind of feel to it, but that's probably not unexpected, realistically speaking. The other thing I will say is the handling on this was good. I really didn't notice the weight of the bike until I got stuck in a little bit of start and stop traffic, which, you know, is not the greatest situation. And in that situation alone, I did find getting onto the brakes when you are in that start and stop situation, getting a little bit of dive in the forks, which obviously was, you know, I guess not ideal, but realistically speaking, when I talk about the suspension being just so good everywhere else, I can't really complain. And certainly even the rear suspension over the harsher bumps was really, really good. Sometimes with these style bikes and with the heavier bikes and being long and low, you can get quite harsh rear suspension and the jolts come through to your spine. However, I think this was probably one of the best bikes, one of the best cruisers I've ridden as far as comfort, keeping in mind I haven't actually test ridden a lot of those kind of more touring cruisers, so that is for a bit of context. Handling, it does obviously have the taller bars and the taller front end, which gives some good wind protection, good leverage through those bars, nice handling characteristic. I've got to say, you know, for me, I thought it just did everything exceptionally well. It was easy to run through the corners and the twisties with quite a bit of speed. Obviously, there is somewhat limited lean angle available there, but you can certainly ride within that. And as I mentioned with the engine, it's more about washing off a bit of speed into the corners and then just absolutely smashing that throttle open, coming out to take advantage of that amazing wave of torque. And the handling is more than up to allowing you to do that. Not much really else to say about the handling there. It did a good job. I had an absolute hoot on my local twisties and having a bit of a run through there, and also on the freeway it was exceptional as well. You know, I could just run along that taller kind of headlight assembly and fork assembly did give me a bit of wind protection despite not having a screen. And so on that side of things, the Lowrider S was again really the winner in my opinion. While we're here on the front end, we do have those dual disc brakes on the front, 300mm rotors I think it is, with 4-piston calipers and a big 282mm rear rotor. And the combined braking is good, but this is a large bike and certainly you do feel the weight and the limitations of kind of the braking performance on offer there. So while I would say I thought the brakes were on the good side of adequate, you know, we're still talking about a large cruiser which weighs quite a bit, and also just the ability of the engine to pick up so much torque so quickly does mean that you are giving those brakes a workout. However, good feel through the lever, easy to put pressure through the foot brake as well. Overall, really, really good. One other thing, of course, worth noting is the ergonomics of the Lowrider S. So I've got a full rundown on this particular bike as a separate video if you want a bit of a more in-depth look at the ergonomics. But as you can see here, 710mm seat height, quite an easy reach to the foot pegs. It's quite a compact reach between the seat and the foot pegs. And then a little bit more of a reach to those bars, but a very upright seating position. And of course, it's a commanding seating position with easy vision of that dash, because that dash is nice and high. You can see exactly what's going on. And you've got, you know, the traditional Harley kind of switch blocks there, which if you're a Harley rider, you'll be very used to with the indicators on each side. Good vision through those mirrors, quite deep levers, but non-adjustable. And overall, just a comfortable, easy thing to ride, particularly with that comfortable seat, which certainly helps the comfort side of things. And also because it's such a scalloped out seat, it holds you in place because you will get thrown back by that torque if you really give it a bit of throttle, which might be something that you need to watch out for because it can catch you unawares. It's really got a lot of torque. Jumping off the bike, it settles right down onto that side stand. That is worth noting, and you do want to really make sure that it's kind of well seated on that stand because it weighs just over 300 kilos and that's a fair bit of weight. But 19-litre fuel tank is going to give you a nice bit of range. So that analog little dash there with the digital readout in it, I think is a really elegant solution. I like the placement. It makes it very, very easy to see. LED lighting all around except for the incandescent indicators, so you're not getting LEDs there, which is a little bit of a strange choice in my mind, but these obviously do very much match the look of the bike, and there's a good throw of light from that headlight. It's got quite a high-tech tail light on it. It looks like you can see all the circuitry in it and everything like that. And one thing that I will actually mention that I really liked on this bike is with this big rear guard on it, there was no issues with it throwing water or dirt up my back when I was riding it, which was one of my criticisms of the Sportster S. And it looks like there is room for a pillion seat to be added there. It does also look like you'd probably need to add some pegs and things like that, so I'm not really sure how possible that is. I didn't really honestly look into it. I was just having so much fun on the bike, but that's something that you could consider. A screen might add a little bit of wind protection, but I mean, you're starting to mess with the look of the bike, and that taller front end did offer a good amount of wind protection to start with, so I was quite happy with that. Okay, so final thoughts on Harley-Davidson's Lowrider S for 2022. The Milwaukee-Eight is an absolute gem, and it is easy to see why Harley-Davidson are still going with their more traditionally styled engines. They are just exceptional, and the V-twin character is beautiful. The performance is really good. Very, very usable engine as well, which, you know, at the end of the day, I think is what it's all about. The dual disc brake setup, good braking performance overall, good suspension performance despite having not the level of adjustability that you'd perhaps expect on a non-cruiser. I really like the taller front end for the level of wind protection and control it offers. That did actually really surprise me how much I appreciated that. Seat comfort, exceptional. Overall ergonomics, in fact, really, really good. So to me, this bike just ticks all the boxes. That $30,750 right-away price here in Australia is fairly hefty, but if you're looking for the top tier engine from Harley, you've got to expect to pay for it. That is $18,350 in the US, but there are some additional kind of add-ons that go onto that to get your out the door price, but that is a point of comparison as far as the pricing. So overall, I've loved riding this bike. I actually just was incredibly surprised in how well it stacks up against the Sportster S, which I guess is probably the Harley which is most designed, aimed at someone like me at the end of the day. And despite this carrying a little bit of a premium, I can definitely see why. Anyway, let me know what you think of the Lowrider S. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. As always, if you've got any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. You can support the channel on Patreon.